Hey guys, I'm Dr. Oob, and I've got Aden DeWitt with me, one of our nutritionists, and this is our second video in the series of Eating in Season. Our previous video was on nutrients and nutrient density and nutrition as far as eating in season, and now we're going to get into taste and how eating in season actually has different tastes, which sounds crazy. So Aden, tell us a little bit about taste.
Yeah, so when you get produce that's in season, you're getting it at the peak of its freshness, really at its prime. So if you've ever, I'll use the same kind of food that I talked about in the last video. If you've ever had a tomato completely out of season, it literally tastes like cardboard or a strawberry.
That's
really
very
anything.
low taste.
Yeah, it's just kind of like lackluster. And if you have somebody in your home that's a picky eater and they say they don't like certain fruits or certain vegetables, it could be just because they've never really tried it. They don't really know what that food tastes like because it was out of season.
That's so true, and I'll say there's kind of 2 points that, especially with kids can be the worst, right? No, I don't like that, and they've never actually tried it. But number one is, of course, if you're eating it at its peak taste, then of course that's going to be a win. But number two is if a kid that doesn't want to eat strawberries or apples or whatever, they're delicious. So if they don't want to eat it, usually that means they're not hungry enough. They've been eating too many processed foods or other foods that are highly palatable and addicting, like Doritos. They're chemically altered to make us addicted to them. So if your taste buds are not tasting the strawberry in season, then it's really a sign that maybe your taste buds have been hijacked by the food chemical industry, basically. And so recently we bought some strawberries, and it's June right now, and just even looking at the fruit, you can tell it's going to have so much more taste. That brilliant red, instead of just like, strawberry in December is red, but that dark red that we get in June, and then you bite into it,
So
it's juicy and sweet.
Oh,
my goodness, I love it. So, and watermelon's the same way. I mean, you get the downside of grocery stores is also the upside. The downside is that the same groceries are available all year round. That's also the good side. But whenever foods are in season, you really want to make sure you're trying to stock up on those, and when they're not in season, eating less of those. So tell us more about taste or what fruits and vegetables are in seasons.
So like right now it's June in Texas, and so we have a lot of fruit definitely in season, like the blueberries, blackberries, strawberries.
Peaches?
I
know Fredericksburg is always doing the peaches, and
Really?
I don't know. I might have seen them in a can and not on the roadside.
I mean, I've seen like cherries are in season, cucumbers, lettuces, a lot of these things that have that higher water content.
Okra, I know, grows really well in the summer. I grew some once.
Yeah. Ironically, winter squash in Texas is.
Really?
Yeah.
Wouldn't guess that.
Yeah.
Okay. And so for non-summer, what are some of the other fruits and vegetables?
Yeah, so like I guess in the fall or maybe the winter, you're definitely going to have those root vegetables like the carrots and the sweet potatoes and the pumpkin and the butternut squash. Like you kind of see a trend here. They're really hardy and yeah.
It makes sense, right? Halloween is full of pumpkins, and why did Halloween get established with pumpkins? Because they're actually in season in October. That's why they're on the doorstep, right? So that's a great time to eat it, and of course why the pumpkin spice stuff comes out in the fall. And you had a resource you shared with me. What was the resource for helping people?
So it's called seasonalfoodguide.org. And you can kind of click the drop down, and you can pick what state that you live in and then what time of year it is, and it'll give you an entire list of produce that's available at this time of year in season for you.
So in addition to eating what's in season, you really want to pay attention, as we talked about in the last video, as far as rotating your foods. You also want to avoid what's not in season. So it's saying the same thing but differently, right? And what we mean by that is if you're constantly eating the same food over and over again, we were never designed to do that. So it doesn't matter if it's strawberries. If you eat strawberries every day of the year, you'll eventually get sensitive. I don't say allergic, but you'll eventually start reacting to that food.
Yeah.
It's one of my theories behind why so many people are gluten and dairy sensitive. It's not so much, I mean, they are kind of triggering foods in general, but it's also because it's everything we eat. We wake up and eat biscuits, and then for lunch we have a sandwich, which is more gluten and cheese on it, and then for dinner we're having pasta. So there's always gluten and dairy, and we're putting cheese on the pasta, right? And so gluten and dairy is a significant trigger for most people because we eat it all the time, year round. So same thing can happen in fruits and vegetables. We see patients all the time.
Sensitive to the randomest things.
Right,
bananas,
like spinach.
Yeah.
Yes.
Things that are seemingly healthy.
Yes.
For them it wasn't.
oftentimes it's a moment of enlightening for our patients when they see that and they're like, but I love almonds. And we go, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why you're sensitive to it, because you love it and you eat it over and over and over again all year round.
Yes.
So always make sure your pantry is rotating. If one week you're buying almonds, the next time you're going to the grocery store, you're getting walnuts. If one week you're buying apples, the next week you're buying pears.
Yes. Exactly.
And then additionally, eating in season, and then just taking breaks from certain foods makes a big difference.
Yes.
So avoiding what's not in season, not to the
And we're not perfect. Like, we're not
Right.
only consuming things in season, but for the most part, it's going to be more beneficial for your health, and you're going to enjoy it a lot better.
Absolutely. It's our genetics we're based off of is eating in a season. Grocery stores are a modern invention.
And then one more thing I'll say about eating kind of like the fresh produce is, if you can't get your hands on something that's actually at your grocery store right now, fresh, you can actually go to the frozen aisle. I know frozen foods get a bad rep, but in reality, they're picked at the peak of freshness and then frozen, so they have a lot of nutrients in them too.
And that seems completely backwards. I first learned about that from Dr. Mark Hyman's book, where he talked about frozen fruit actually has more nutrients than the fresh fruit. You would think it's totally backwards, but just like Aden already said, when they freeze fruit, they have to pick it at its already ripe point, because it's not going to ripen in the freezer, right? They lock it when they freeze it. Whereas a fresh produce that you're going to see at the grocery store, strawberries in a container, they actually pick it while it's unripe, and then they ripen it along the way, and many of them use chemicals to ripen the fruits. I believe organic, they're not allowed to use those chemicals, I would assume. But that's one of the reasons why if you get organic fruit, a lot of times there's several that are already a little rotten in there, and that's just part of the sacrifice you make with buying organic. But it tastes so much better when it's a strawberry that's organic and in season. Favorite thing in the world.
So don't be afraid of getting frozen organic produce.
Yes. And then you can kind of have it all year round, even if it's not in season, because frozen lasts a while. That's not ideal.
Then you also get more opportunity to rotate.
Good.
Cool.
All right, Aiden, so our next video is nutrition and or eating in season with financial perspective.
What are the benefits financially?
Yes. Okay. So check out the next video, and if you haven't seen the first video, watch that one. Like and subscribe to our channel, and give us feedback, leave questions, comments. We're happy to answer as many of them as we can. Bye, guys.
Bye.